get home what they think they deserve, which is they're war veterans and they think they deserve what they have been promised. And not only them, there are a lot of group of the veterans, be it in West Africa, be it in East Africa, be it in the Caribbean, in the West Indies, who actually were promised of a lot. Some of them were promised of even citizenship of France if after the war. But then they didn't get nothing. After the war, the Europeans actually drive them home. But then these people in West Africa, especially in Ghana, actually thought that what they promised they weren't given, so they went on in arms against the British administration at the time. And then, so the administration actually opened fire and killed tons of people who are harmless, who are not having arms at all. So these people were wiped out. But in some countries, actually, they left behind a legacy of infight, like countries like Nigeria. So it took them years, like countries like Congo, it took them years to actually to come together to start the needed economic activities that society really needs. So Ghana being the beacon of the hope, a lot of countries start to. So Ghana was trying to actually draw the idea of United Africa so that they could regain the lost period of their resources, of their human resources and whatnot. So that went on till today. But then, even though the Europeans have left, they have not left. They've left in physical, but in proxy, they were still around managing stuff, especially countries in the French-speaking territories. Some people said that if you have a contract in these countries, and then you go to seek for payment and stuff like that, those people who actually sign the check are not the black Africans who administrate stuff. You see the black African administrating stuff, but then at back of the door is a French man who's actually going to sign the check. And this went on till today. Economically, socially, politically, this went on for years till today. And there are countries till today actually that are still being manipulated by the French power. And the British, though, they've managed to give up entirely everything that they have to do with the English-speaking countries like Ghana, Gambia, Sierra Leone, and Ghana, Sierra Leone, and some other countries, because these countries are in the West, and then again the British colonies of the East Africa, which is Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, and the other countries. Actually, so all these countries, but then the west coast of Africa, British have entirely left, but then they haven't actually left in the East Southern African countries like Botswana, countries like Zimbabwe. The British were there till the mid-80s when they actually left. So this is pretty much. So
we only have actually we have 16 more minutes before we have to literally leave.
Oh, okay. So maybe I can. There are things that I wasn't able to explain. I can do it faster.
Okay, you want to talk until the end, or you want to?
Okay, if there are questions for now, I think we can discuss those questions.
Yeah. Would anyone like to start? I wrote down 4 questions.
Okay, I just want one technical question. You were saying 1844, but it was written 1884. So which one is it?
Oh, actually, there are 2 conferences. One was held in 1844, and then the latest was 1884.
Okay.
Right, one did not include Germany, and one.
Yes, the first one was in Germany. It was the second one that Germany came into it.
Okay, other questions? Okay, well, let me ask a question first. It sounds like, from what you said, that the Arab traders had a good relationship with the tribes in Africa. Did other traders from other places have a worse relationship, or?
Actually, you see, the worst relationship they had with other traders were mostly Europeans.
So they had a better relationship with the Arabs, much better.
They had a relationship with the Arabs because the Arabs don't have the technicalities and the resources like the Europeans have. The Europeans had resources, they have the technology, they have the ideas that make them hang on. But then the Arabs are mostly traders, they are business people. So their sole idea was to come down there and do trade.
Was it like the people in Africa, the people in the tribes in Africa were just watching the traders, and that's how they learned about the religious practices, or were there also
the religious practices actually came with certain cultures and language.
But my question is, were there actually Muslim missionaries?
Well, okay, depending on how you call it, there could be missionaries or they could be
traders,
mere traders. So it depends on the idea and of how you term it. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
I saw a show where there was mining gold in West Africa even today, and I was wondering if the people of West Africa, I'm not sure which country it was, have control over the gold trade, or is it still under control of some foreign power?
It depends on which country.
It might have been Nigeria.
Nigeria, for instance, see, Nigeria actually, the British actually managed to leave a legacy, some kind of representation, which is semi-ethnic. And then they made these these tribes, really powerful, like the houses in the north. Because they have all the necessary infrastructures that make them to get hold of these oil regions. Because these oil region ethnics didn't actually get along well with the British. So the British back then have the capabilities, they have the resources, they have the power to actually put up infrastructure. So if you're not along well with them, then obviously you're not going to get anything for any developmental infrastructure at the time. So basically the houses in the north, they have the most powerful edge over the others. Yeah, on all fronts. Till it's still happening, because most of them actually were educated in the UK. Most of them had the opportunity of education and the richer regions. And remind you, this region of the houses are resource poor. I mean, it's resource ravaged because it's really dry. It's just on the verge of the Sahara, and it's basically dry. And what they do mostly is agriculture. Yeah.
Other questions?
But they still have money to get control.
Other questions? I had a question. Did more slaves from Africa go to Europe and the Arab area, Arabia, stuff like that, or to the Americas?
Yeah. The slaves that actually went to the Arabians weren't as much as the slaves that went to the Europeans and Americas. It was somewhere during even actually the Arabs actually started seeing the blacks earlier than actually the Europeans because of religion and trade. So during those trade, they took certain percentage, a few percentage of black people for them all, for religious purposes, for trading purposes, and certain other purposes. So they, but then the massive, huge proportion of the whole thing went to Europe and America and Latin America.
But my question is, if you take Europe and the Arab countries or the Arab area, and you combine the two as one, and say the Americas is another one, were the ones for Arab and European larger or smaller than the slaves going to the number smaller or larger going
I
to
think
the Americas?
the large proportion of the slaves actually went to the Americas, but then with the help of the Europeans, because at the time
It was all Europeans anyway.
yeah, because at the time the Europeans actually have had what we probably might term as enough of the slave labor. So where they needed it the most is the Americas, which they call the New World.
Because they have new resources and new places to plant new
So
things.
they're putting more slave labor there than actually what they needed back in Europe.
But maybe before that time, for like 500 years before the slave trade started in the Americas, there was still a lot of slave trade going on with Europe and Arabia. Not maybe to the same extent, but still.
Yes. Even among the Arabs themselves, there's a slave trade going on, but not on the scale that actually left Africa to that region.
Okay. Other questions? I got two more. Kathy? No? Okay, so the tribes in the Congo, this is what I heard, the tribes in the Congo pre-Belgian times, they did not live in the lowlands next to the rivers or the lakes, or whichever, because there were a lot of mosquitoes that spread malaria.
Because you see, this is the thing about Congo. Congo is really vast. It is very vast, and I believe that there is even a large part of the Congo today that no human has ever set foot. I believe strongly, because it is densely rainforest. It is thick, and any animal, any living animal that lives in the jungle lives in the Congo. Probably the only animal that you wouldn't be having in the Congo would be, I don't know, maybe anaconda. I doubt even if they don't have it. So the Europeans actually didn't explore much of the Congo, and even the Congo itself, because right after the colonization, Congo went on to war. There was a war that took them years, because they were the most unprepared society to administrate. So, because it was an influx thing that the Belgians and the Europeans have to leave. So, it was quite recent that Congo managed to see some...
My question was specifically about malaria. I heard that before the Belgians came, most of the people living in the Congo did not live next to rivers and lakes because they wanted to stay away from the mosquitoes. But when the Belgians came, they set up towns on the rivers and the lakes because they were doing trade across rivers down the rivers, and they brought a lot of the native population to those towns, and then that started to spread malaria and killed a lot of the native populations. Is that true?
That might be true in certain quarters, because before even the coming of the Europeans, there were some European people, actually, some few researchers who actually managed to get into Congo, to get to certain part of the Congo and do certain research. But at the end of their research, anytime they take a report back, the report is nasty. It's not good report. So this actually discouraged the Europeans from exploring further into the Congo. So in the case of malaria, there are a lot of actually diseases that people believe that it came out of Congo. But there is no, some of them will tell you Uganda, some of them will tell you Congo, because of the density of it, because of the remoteness of it. So anything could come out of that, but not necessarily coming out of that, from that region. It might be that Europeans came there and brought it, who knows, but just because of the nature of the terrain, it's hard to actually determine where it really came from.
Okay, other questions? We have a few more minutes. I have one last question. Anybody? No? Kathy, don't you have a paper there?
I do.
Save it for later. Okay, what kinds of things did the Ghanan Empire leave behind, such as architecture or art? I know that
the Ghana Empire left behind actually, but then after the Ghana, because the Ghana Empire collapsed right at the turn of the 18th century, and then mostly by the coming of the Europeans, because the most powerful man back then has died, and which actually he was able to put up a good army to be able to stand certain potential oppression. So the empire collapsed, but then it left behind certain legacies. It left behind the scripts, because Ghana Empire actually set up universities. Like, I don't know if you heard of Timbuktu and all these territories. Actually, it was set up by the Ghana Empire, and there were universities in Timbuktu. There were laboratories in Timbuktu at the time, and they were having actually a modernized society, because the kingdom was actually rich in resources and rich in human resources, and they were even bringing in teachers and professors from the other part of the world to come there and teach. So it became actually a very known, renowned for certain scholars and researchers back then, actually. Yeah, so it left back a lot. The knowledge, technologies, a lot actually, yeah. But then I believe that even till today, there are some societies that actually are still benefiting from that. Mostly the Nordic societies, which are the Hausa tribes, because they manage to gain control over the large portion of business activities in West Africa, be it on a small scale or on the large scale. So probably that tradition might come from that empire, because it has a strong connection with these people and then with the coming of the religion of Islam. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all the time that we have. Thanks, Joe.